truth, and the truth is that we all are created by the same God, and we should try to work together. So he's done a lot of things, in my opinion, to better the image of the Nation of Islam in the eyes of civilized people.
But Imam, if I may ask you, do you think, like your father did with you, that Farrakhan is doing with his new leadership, giving them instructions to do something different after him?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't answer that.
All right,
I don't know.
That's no problem. Let me ask you, Imam, I'm going to talk about the establishment of the Sister Clara Muhammad schools, and what was the genesis for that one. And alhamdulillah, today if you go in most major cities, you can find a Sister Clara Muhammad school. So tell us a bit about the establishment of those schools and how it helped to build Muslim character.
It's the same school system that I attended or was a part of when I was a boy, getting my elementary education and high school education. I received a high school diploma from the school in Chicago, and it was not called Clara Muhammad School, only called that after my leadership.
Right.
It was called the University of Islam. Yeah. Now, you know, a university means several colleges under all belonging together as a university. Yes. So I didn't like that we continued that. I knew why it was done. It was done for the same reason we were called the superior race, black people, the superior race. It was done to lift up a down and out spirit or ego, to inflate it, to lift it up, so we could be proud and think highly of ourselves, whereas the white man's culture was designed to make us think ourselves inferior, So I know why it was done. I know why it was called University of Islam, you know. I knew why we were told that we were getting supreme teachings and all that, to lift us up, to lift us up. Okay, but it wasn't real. It was not real. So when I became the leader, I suggested that the school system, all the schools be called Clara Muhammad schools, and they accepted, majority accepted, and they loved it. But a few, very few, chose to keep the old language, University of Islam. Now, so these schools were established under the leadership of my father, and my mother strongly supported them. Or she just devoted herself to the children, to encourage them to do their best work and graduate. And every graduation, my mother would come out, and she would have gifts for all the graduates, you know. So that's why I thought that the people would like to have those schools be called Clara Muhammad schools.
Imam, if I may ask, just tell us a bit about your mother and her influence in your life, and you know, how she dealt with all the changes and things that came about.
She came from church life, and she was a very strong believer, very strong believer. Her faith was just very strong. And when she converted to the new idea that my father accepted, would you believe that my father was brought to Mr. Farad by my mother?
No,
my mother met him first.
Never heard that.
Well, let me give it to you. My mother told me, she said, son, your father, I think she saw me weaken in my faith in Mr. Farad. She said, your father was a drunk. She said, it was during the depression when everybody was suffering, and we were suffering more than everybody else, she said. She said, and your father would not come home. He didn't come home until he thought that everybody was asleep, so then he'd come home. So he was ashamed to come home because he couldn't bring any money. He had no way of bringing money home. So he stayed out in the streets as a drunk. She said, my girlfriend, who had a lot of children like I had, she told me there's a man, a strange man, say he's teaching something on the streets. Say he's saying that we, the blacks, came from royal families, and they used to wear long, beautiful clothes, silk clothes, garments and whatever. And she said, my girlfriend said, you ought to go hear this man. She said, I went. She said, not for myself. She said, I went for my husband. I thought maybe there'll be something to help him. She said, and I went and I heard him. And I came back and I told my husband what I heard, and he went with me. He cleaned himself up and got there. and dressed up nice, you know. Well, Mrs. Farad started from the very beginning, telling them they had to dress clean and dress like business people, you know. So anyway, said my father dressed up and he went to hear him speak. She said, son, would you believe that after hearing him speak for one time, your father told me as we left the place, he said, Clara, when we get home, I want you to take all the pork out of the ice box and throw it away. Now that tell you what time it was, huh? On the calendar, ice box. I want you to take all the pork out of the ice box and throw it away. She said, Wallace, she said, I couldn't do that because I had a girlfriend and she was suffering just like, she had many children to feed. She said, I obeyed him. I took all the pork out of the ice box and gave it to my girlfriend, who was a Christian, you know, who was still a Christian. And she said, would you believe that your father never took a drop of liquor after that? So the influence of that man's teaching, Mr. Farad, Mr. Farad, the influence of his teaching was so powerful on African Americans that they just immediately broke bad habits that he told them to break.
So, Imam, when you, I think recently you have relinquished your leadership of the national organization of Muslims here in America. Before you did that, what was the guidance and direction you gave to the management board you left behind on where you want to see, the direction you want to see the community go?
Well, I made it clear to them that I was separating my ministry from the organization, and that I didn't like too much organization. I told them that I don't like too much organization. And the Nation of Islam was all about tight organization, very tight organization, having its own laws, its own court, and brothers have to come every weekend, every Friday, every Saturday to get their instructions. And, you know, there's too much control in the life of individuals for me. So I did it to take the message outside of the walls, the physical walls of the Temple of Islam. I felt that if I could free myself and my ministry, my leadership from those walls, that eventually I could open up opportunities for us to enter the broad stream life of this country.